This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore. Unfortunately, we must once again talk about grody-ass Matt Gaetz. The hits just keep on coming for this fella. Apparently, the chickens have come home to roost. All of his shenanigans, if you will, are coming back to haunt him. Matt Gaetz is a guy who grew up much like Donald Trump or Donald Trump's stupid son, Donald Trump Jr., or Eric for that matter, although he's more out of the spotlight. He grew up a rich kid. He grew up with an exceedingly privileged life. He grew up with a father who led the Florida State Senate. Largely immune from consequence, I'm certain. Able to get away with whatever he did. And that is what's showing right now, that he, after the insurrection and after Liz Cheney votes her conscience and finally does the right thing related to voting for the impeachment of Donald Trump, Matt Gaetz goes to Wyoming and tries to throw her under the bus with her electorate. He's a shitty person. And now we are finding out, as I've talked about before, the reporting that he is involved, or it is alleged that he is involved in a child trafficking scandal with Joel Greenberg, the former tax collector of Seminole County, who has been indicted on like 33 charges, some of which include sex trafficking involving a 17-year-old girl. These are the kind of people that Matt Gaetz cavorts with, hangs out with, associates with. And it is just getting worse and worse for Matt Gaetz. I'm going to talk about two different stories that dropped yesterday. Today's the 9th, yesterday. One for the New York Times, headline here: indicted Matt Gaetz associate is expected to plead guilty, lawyers say. The indication of a potential cooperation deal came as investigators were also examining a trip by Mr. Gaetz to the Bahamas and whether he discussed running a so-called ghost candidate in a local race. I'm not going to talk about the ghost candidate. That is immaterial to this particular thing, although that's sleazy politics. That's where you put somebody on who's not really running. They serve to siphon off votes to make your win more likely. So I'm going to read from that. And then, just in a barrage of headlines, the Daily Beast did some investigating about Venmo charges between Greenberg and Matt Gaetz. And this is the headline here: Matt Gaetz paid accused sex trafficker who then Venmo'd teen. And I'm going to read some from the article. Both their Venmo transactions are either not public anymore, because that's how brazen they were. They just had all this public where reporters could go through their Venmo transactions, or they've been deleted. But first, and by the way, let me say this before we get moving here. There is more to come. What I'm hearing, the rumblings that I'm privy to, say that this is maybe not the beginning, but this is by no means the end of the story for Matt Gaetz. There is going to be more to come. More bad news for little Matty Gaetz. So let's start with the New York Times story. Again, indicted Matt Gaetz associate is expected to plead guilty, lawyers say. And again, a cooperation deal is likely. Investigators are said to be examining their involvement with women who were recruited online for sex and given cash payments, as well as whether Matt Gaetz had sex with a 17-year-old child. They don't say child because it's a New York Times and who knows why they do what they do, but had sex with a 17-year-old child. Mr. Greenberg, who already faces one count of sex trafficking involving the girl, would be able to give prosecutors a first-hand account of their actions. Mr. Greenberg's potential deal also comes as the FBI has widened its investigation to include questions about a trip to the Bahamas that Mr. Gaetz took with Republican allies from Florida, and women who were able to provide sex for them, according to 4 people familiar with the inquiry. Again, where are the QAnon idiots? Crickets. Crickets from them. Save the children. Crickets. And running in tandem, mere hours apart, this other story. The Daily Beast, Gaetz paid accused sex trafficker who then Venmo'd teen. In 2 late-night Venmo transactions in May 2018, Representative Matt Gaetz sent his friend, the accused sex trafficker Joel Greenberg, $900. The next morning, over the course of 8 minutes, Greenberg used the same app to send 3 young women varying sums of money. In total, the transactions amounted to $900. Wow! What a coincidence. What an unfortunate coincidence for Matt Gaetz. The memo field for the first of Gaetz' transactions to Greenberg was titled Test. In the second, the Florida GOP congressman wrote, "Hit up blank." But instead of blank, Gaetz wrote a nickname for one of the recipients. The Daily Beast is not sharing that nickname because the teenager had only turned 18 less than 6 months before. When Greenberg then made his Venmo payments to these 3 young women, he described the money as being for tuition, school, and again, school. The Daily Beast examined these records as a scandal rooted in a criminal case against Greenberg engulfs Gaetz. That could be potentially disastrous for Gaetz as investigators look into the connections between these 2 men, and one particularly damning connection is their financial transactions. This week, during the reporting of this story, Gaetz's once public list of Venmo transactions disappeared. Greenberg's Venmo account is not currently publicly accessible, but the Daily Beast was able to obtain partial records of Greenberg's past online transactions through a source. Greenberg's defense attorney, Fritz Scheller, also did not immediately respond to requests for comment, but during a press conference after a hearing for the case, Scheller offered that the Florida congressman would probably not welcome the news that Greenberg was taking a plea deal. Quote, "I'm sure Matt Gaetz is not feeling very comfortable today," Scheller said. And I have video of that. I want to play it. It's a reporter asking about what kind of trouble that Matt Gaetz may be facing after this. And listen to well, first of all, where do these Republicans find this cadre of eccentric lawyer? This guy is wearing it is just a shit show. He's wearing his mask as though he's got like a long horse face. And then at one point he takes his mask off and he's got a normal thing going on under there. But he's wearing his mask as though it's a nose mask. Anyway, watch this remarkable moment from the post-hearing press conference with Fritz Scheller.
To the prosecutor's office who charges the case.
Fritz, does Matt Gaetz have anything to worry about?
Does Matt Gaetz, that is such a... when
it comes to what happened today in court.
Does he have anything to worry about? And you're asking me to get into the mind of Matt Gaetz, right? And...
well, from your mind.
From my mind.
Based on what your client knows.
Based on what my client knows. Okay.
And the fact that he's...
See, I thought if I kept on talking and talking, I would avoid these questions and not to say, I'm sure Matt Gaetz is not feeling very comfortable today. All right?
How much of his...
I'm sure Matt Gaetz is not feeling very comfortable today. It's never a good sign when the lawyer, when the attorney, when counsel starts just repeating the questions over and over. Pretty bizarre. Anyway, this is where we are. Again, wait for more. There could be more drop today, but certainly over the course of the next days and unlikely that it'll last weeks for new information to drop. There will be new information that these projecting hypocrites, these Republicans who defend Donald Trump at every cost, are complicit in the same types of immoral, disgusting behavior. Anyway, I'd love to know what you think about this on this Friday morning for me, early morning right now. You can leave me a voicemail, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can always email me a regular old-fashioned email at daily@dollemore.com. I would love to hear from you. If this format here on YouTube and video format is not enough for you, you'd love to hear more, you could join me on my podcast. Find my podcast wherever you find podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you can find podcasts, hell, even on my website. The podcast is called I Doubt It, with my lovely, talented, scholarly co-host, Brittany Page. We'd love to have you join us. We feature voicemails just about each and every episode from the audience, really in an effort to move the conversation forward about these particular topics. We don't just go into politics, though. We talk about culture and a little bit about our lives. It's a good time, and people, they seem to enjoy it. The other thing I would ask is that you would consider supporting my work here on YouTube. For as little as $2 a month, you can help support independent analysis and commentary on the headlines of the news of the day, breaking things down into what I hope is more consumable, understandable packets of information about pretty complex topics sometimes. You can click the join button, and I would really appreciate supporting my work. Follow me on social media. I am all over the place. That's a good time. And I love you guys. I appreciate your engagement with my content, and it's always a good time. Anyway, I love you. I'll see you next time. Until I do, be genuine and take care of one another.